Hi, and welcome to 21st Century Saints, a podcast and live stream series for members, those affiliated with, adjacent to, or like to hang around the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in the United Kingdom and around the world. Tonight, we have a special panel episode. This is part of our Brit Vengers series. I think we're focusing on what we've dubbed the British Rescue. So I'm your host, Jane Christie. This is my co-host, Alana Wilson-Bryce. Do you want to say hi? And
Hey, everybody.
for those who haven't tuned in before, we've got a lot of new viewers. Do you want to maybe say a little bit about yourself, Alana?
Maybe.
Maybe. You go.
Yeah, so I am Alana. I have a 8-year-old girl who thinks she's 18, and I am no longer attending church. What else should I say?
I guess, are you marital state? Is that a part
I
of
am
your
single. I am single.
You're single.
I'm single and 40.
Alana is our independent mother that we are really proud of, and who is doing this podcast with us for the past. How long have we been podcasting for?
I don't know. It feels like forever.
We've been here a little while now, huh?
Yeah.
About maybe 6 months since spring. We also have, for the first time, I think, Lynn Bleakley. Is this your first podcast live stream?
Yes.
So do you want to tell everyone a little bit about who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing?
Yep. So my name is Lynn Bleakley, maiden name Lynn Kuyper. So people might know me under that name in the Mormon world. I'm not active anymore. Have a excommunicated husband who you might know, Peter Bleakley, Mormon Civil War podcaster. So you may know him, and this is my first podcast, so you wouldn't have heard much or anything from me, but you might have seen some of my chats in the podcast as on the YouTube as the Mormon Freedom Fairy, and here she is, my Mormon Freedom Fairy.
And it's so good.
I feel quite free now.
Absolutely. We've got to know Lynn a little bit since we started this whole Brit Vengers journey, and we love you. You're awesome. And we're going to hear more about your experiences and your thoughts tonight, which I'm really excited because I love some of the things that I love all the things that you've been sharing. But I'm really excited to share that with everyone. And also we have a returning guest, Deborah Squires-Coleman. Do you want to say hi and introduce yourself again?
You're on mute.
Sorry. Debbie, I am church tending, have been since I was 16, in my early 60s now, so I'm still plugging away at it, and 5 children and 12 grandchildren.
It's great to have you back.
I think Debbie might have been my young women's leader at one point.
I was. That's why when you said Kuyper, that's why I went like this, because that's how I know you as a Kuyper.
The small Mormon world, right? And as you will have noticed, what we're talking about tonight is specifically about a couple of hours ago. It's so recent. The recent Europe area broadcast for Single Sisters, and you will have noticed we have our resident male, our resident priesthood holder here in
presiding.
Are you presiding, Nemo?
I'm not in a position to preside over any of you.
So for those of you...
That's the right answer.
Living under a rock and who don't know who he is, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, I'm Nemo the Mormon. I run the YouTube channel under the same name. I fact check church media I generally give the church a bit of a hard time when they're not honest with people. And I love to come on podcasts like this and chat with people. That's what I do.
So we're going to kick off just making it really clear that I think tonight, Alana, this was designed for you. So,
Spot the single.
yeah. Oh, we're singles.
I'm happy being single at the moment.
Well, of course, but that's really how a lot of these things often come across is, oh, we need to do something for the single sisters. So do you think we could maybe share a little bit, if we could go around starting with you, Alana, maybe sharing a little bit about what we thought tonight was going to be about what our expectations were?
I guess, there's always that apprehension when you hear them saying they want to speak to the single sisters. And I think right away you kind of go to it, right, there's going to be the whole, let's get married talk. And, there's someone out there for you, don't be too picky, all these things that you hear growing up, So, yeah, I thought there would have been a bit of that. I don't really think I thought too much about what else to expect. I just always think, because it was just specifically single sisters, you're thinking, right, okay. And also I'll talk to you about what I actually thought about it when you asked that question.
Yeah, we'll come back round. What about you, Lynn? Did you have any expectations of tonight?
No, I wasn't fully aware of the programming for this evening, but I was a single sister in the church for about 18 years. So I've been there, and if I think about how I would have felt if I was still single and a meeting was coming up, I would have known what they were going to say. You are loved and you're important and we need you, and those kinds of things. So yeah, I think I would have known what was coming up, and I would have felt a bit like, oh,
here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. I probably, because I'm quite an optimistic person, I probably would have been optimistic that they were going to say something, different or useful to me. But invariably, in a lot of those scenarios, I was quite often disappointed when I was a single sister about the programming for singles. So yeah, I would have had an expectation and likely would have come away disappointed.
And before we come to you, Deborah, I think it's worth keeping in mind that actually an expectation that maybe something was going to happen or be said, or that we might get something new, is maybe not that unrealistic. So everybody was quite excited when, a matter of, months ago now, we got news through the church newsroom that a women's area, who can remember what it's called? The women's...
Oh, right, that new role.
Coordinator.
Yeah, coordinator, that's it.
Yeah. And so 3 women had been called to this brand new calling. So yeah, I kind of thought maybe we might be seeing them come into, this might be the first time.
Were any of them there?
Yeah. Were they? Does anybody know?
Not sure.
No, not sure.
I must admit, I missed the first 10 minutes, so I wasn't sure if they were introduced at the beginning. So
I'll do a fact check while you guys carry on.
So did you have any expectations or hopes, Deborah?
Yeah, I don't really have many expectations of these things. I just feel that they fulfill some people's needs, but not very often mine. But I tuned in because, I always have that hope. And, it wasn't supposedly aimed at married sisters, but I don't think I heard anything there that didn't apply to just sisters. Yeah. There didn't seem anything specific about single sisters at all. So, so I listened in just to see if I could glean any uplifting stuff. And I did a little bit, you know, a bit here and there. So.
And so we're going to talk about the content just presently, but I had been in touch with a couple of people regarding this because we were asked to share it. So the first people that I felt it was really important to share it with were those friends of mine who are in the area who are transgender. I'm quite aware that they are sisters who wouldn't get this invitation. So I felt like it was really important to make sure that they were invited and knew that even if they don't feel, you know, the response was, you know, the church doesn't want me there. That even if that is the case, that we want you there, that as sisters, that you are welcome and that you are loved and that you are part of the the sisters, you know, really. The other people that I wanted to make sure were invited were just people who had, you know, some kind of interest if you were out of the area, because this was for the whole of Europe, which I found, you know, that's a lot of sisters, right? Nemo, would you like to maybe comment on what you were expecting from this, maybe in context of the British Rescue, and maybe also if you could comment on the advertising? Lynn mentioned that she hadn't really heard about it. Yeah.
Right, so just before I get to that real quick, they were called International Area Organization Advisors. That's what these new sisters being called were, and I didn't see any of them there tonight. I've just had a look at who they were. With that said, what did I expect in terms of British Rescue? Well, I had someone reach out to me and leak some figures the other day about the state of the church in Europe. And what's going on really in Europe is that we have a 25% attendance rate at the moment in Europe. You've got about 92,000 people there, so there's about 45,000 sisters, something like that. I don't know how you extrapolate the rate of single sisters in that group, but you know, the church is suffering, not just in Britain but in Europe, which is why I think this went to all the sisters. I don't know whether it was quite interesting that the first sister that spoke, her husband died in 2016, so she's a single sister in the church. I don't know whether she felt like she wanted to then speak to the sisters. I don't know. I feel like this thing is so niche and so new that it's hard to kind of track down what actually caused a conference like this to be called for just single sisters. It's a very specific target audience.
Yeah. Yep. And it was made clear, you know, whether this is true or not, I don't know, but certainly for Europe, that this was the first of its kind. There's not been something like this before, and we've just missed it. But you know, as Lynn mentioned, there are a lot of things happening recently. So you know, we've had the apostles' visits, which I think was pretty heavily promoted in that they were traveling around reminiscing. There was lots of stuff in the church news about it. This has either been, some words have been great, some words not so great at promoting it. We've also had this past weekend, and the following weekend we've got some church history. What are they? Devotionals, firesides?
Firesides.
Church history firesides. And some of them, it's, in fact, I think pretty much all of them, it's really hard to get some information, or you know, if you wanted to participate or watch, it's so difficult to get that information. So this has not been promoted as much as it could have been, which is a real shame when it's something that's new.
Definitely. My ward found out this afternoon, essentially, or we certainly got the link this afternoon. It came through from the bishop.
I know our stake, we received it last week. We actually had a fireside plan for tonight, which we cancelled, so that the sisters could focus on this. So yeah, we thought it was late notice, but we did get it a week ago.
And the weird way it was announced was like, these sisters are in Europe, and so therefore it's almost like, well, they're passing through, so why don't we shove them into a chapel near Frankfurt Temple in Germany, and we'll have a bit of a fireside. Because actually the tech setup and everything compared to the Apostles' visit was smaller, lower key. You know, the chapel was virtually empty. If you watched it, like it went.
Mr. Mysteries, it looked like, didn't it?
Yeah,
It
it was.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
weird.
that's sort of been what I have been wondering about, the events of these, this weekend and next weekend. If we're having church leaders come to visit, but those who are invited to attend are really the super faithful who, if they didn't come, if no church leader came by for the rest of people's lives, they would still go to church. If the church were to be only them, they would still be going, and that's great. For the people who need it though, who do have questions, who do, Alana, were you excited to hear that this was?
I don't know that I would use the word excited, just because of where I stand, obviously, with church. I was interested. Like, I don't watch a lot of church stuff. I was speaking to a lady in the ward just earlier because I'm collecting stuff for the homeless just now, and I was dropping it off, and I'd said that to her, that I was going to be watching it. I said, just out of interest, I said, just to see what it's about, and I guess just because, it is kind of new, it's, I just thought, what's the word they say? You've got a bit of FOMO.
Yeah.
You're scared you're going to miss something wonderful kind of thing. So I don't know that I was overly excited about it. I was more interested to see what was going to be said.
When you were active, would you have felt differently?
Honestly, probably not.
Yeah, no, but
Because I was active, but I wouldn't say I was the most super active, fully engaged member. Like,
well, I think if someone doesn't love the conference devotional type fireside type format, it's, if it's going to be a snooze fest, it's very, very rarely do we see things shared, which is why we're going to come on and talk a little bit about the format. Okay, let's kick off then with thoughts on the first talk. Who was the first speaker again? Can we remember, Sister?
Susan H.
Porter.
Porter.
Sister Porter.
Yeah, I keep speaking and forgetting I'm muted.
Thoughts on Sister Porter's talk?
I thought it was quite nice.
You like Sister Porter's talk?
Yeah. Well, out of all the talks, I thought it was the nicest.
Really? Okay, tell me what you liked about it.
I think the last part, it got better. It started off, well, I don't listen to too many church meetings nowadays because I get a bit triggered. So first of all, I was being a bit triggered. And then once I settled in, it was quite nice. I liked her choice of scripture at the end. What scripture did she say? Corinthians, about the scripture where I cannot see, or ear cannot hear what, and the mind can't comprehend all the good things that the Lord has for you. I thought that was has for those that love him. I think it was a Corinthians scripture. I don't know why. I thought I noted it down, but I really loved that scripture. So that was one of my highlights for her talk. And there was some other kind of things that I thought weren't so great as well. But out of all of the talks, I thought hers was quite good.
Yeah.
It's really hard when someone starts off going downhill for me to focus again. I found it a bit challenging. But just before we come to you, Alana, would it be okay? We just had a question there. Sister Susan H. Porter is in the primary general presidency.
Yes.
She's first counsellor.
Yeah. So, and just to give context also, so the two speakers that we had, although there is a sort of course, there's a final male speaker. So we had someone from the primary presidency and someone from the young women's presidency who had been traveling.
Why didn't we have the Relief Society?
I was about to say, to speak to single sisters.
That's what I thought.
Who've been killing it. Yeah.
Primary and young women are like inherently single sisters.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been exciting. Alana, do you want to share your thoughts?
I had some mixed thoughts about it. Like, I wouldn't say it was the worst talk. And I'm not here to bring, anyone down necessarily, or, like, rip things apart, but the one, I think it was near the beginning, at first I'm thinking, yes, women power, because she was saying about how much power was in this room. But as I've really sat and reflected that, I'm thinking, but you're saying that, but not all women feel that, It's okay to say, there's something along the lines of, with all the women here, there's so much power in this room because it's women. And I think to an extent that is wonderful, because I'm all for, the women power. But I think a lot of us women don't feel like that we have a lot of power, and I'm not meaning like we need the power, but we don't feel we've got a say. We don't feel we're involved in things when it comes to decision making within the church and all these things. So I kind of felt a bit mixed about that point. On one hand, I was kind of like, yay, women power. But the other side, maybe after really reflecting on it, I thought, how many women don't feel that?
Yeah, because she did speak about being seen, didn't she? She said something, and she picked out the words about being seen. How are you seen? And she went on to say about how you're seen, and I thought, well, a lot of women in the church are not seen, or if they're seen, they're definitely not heard.
I think that what you're saying, Alana, it's almost for me, it's saying, well, this is what power looks like, the power of all the women sitting here. And there have been so many times when I've sat in all female spaces that I have felt that, and it's been incredible, because we don't get to experience that in church. But the reality is, it wasn't an all female space. If someone's saying this is what power does look like, look around, this is what you should be feeling, and you're not feeling it.
I think there was just one more wee point, like I'm just kind of, I took some notes, I didn't go crazy, but I think as well, like I felt a little bit again, like just going alongside the British Rescue thing, just a lot of the points that were getting put across, I kind of felt, again, it was a bit more about, what's the word I'm trying to find, like trying to let us really feel like we need to do more, we need to keep ourselves safe from what's out there. I don't really know if that's exactly what I'm trying to say, but she'd said a few times about it matters what our choices are, what our faithfulness is. So I felt again there was that element of you need to behave, you need to stick with the church, although it wasn't maybe said in so many ways. That was just the kind of impressions that I got from it. There was one bit that I wasn't really keen on, and I've very much just written a very short. I actually wrote the sentence and then I wrote "really" in a question mark when she was kind of talking about women of the world. Again, we seem to be very good at talking about people out with the church in a way that I don't think is acceptable. And maybe I took that the wrong way, I don't know, but I didn't like that, like talking about women of the world. And I think she said something along the lines of, we need to bring them to the church or something. And I think, obviously growing up in church, when you hear of, what is it, be in the world but not of the world, so that kind of comes to my head. People of the world, women of the world, so because they're worldly and doing these things, I don't know. It's difficult for me to really fully say what I'm trying to say, but I'm just... I think in our group chat, I'd sent a message. I can't bring it up, obviously, because Jane told me to put my phone on airplane mode. So I commented saying, I said, I'm just not getting yet. Is it something along the lines of I'm not getting what the whole purpose of this is for the single sisters? Because there was nothing... Like you said, Deborah, I felt like it could have been given to all the sisters. In fact, not even just the sisters. I think everyone could have heard it. And I'm trying to remember what Nemo's response was, because I quite like that.
So you said, am I missing something? And I said, well, you're the target audience, Alana. So if you're missing it, maybe it's just not there.
Yeah, because I'm sitting waiting for this wonderful something that I'm thinking, yes, this is for the single sisters, that was wonderful. And I just thinking... I just don't get it. I just don't get it. So yeah, it was a bit much, I guess. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
And that's the second opportunity that there has been from, high up sort of church leadership for you to have had a spiritual experience. And it makes me really sad that you've not been able to have that when that's what their aim has been. You know, that's kind of disappointing. It's missing a really great opportunity. Debbie, did you have any thoughts on the first speaker?
I actually missed quite a bit of the first, so I didn't, but I don't really have much to say about that particular speaker, except listening to Alana is making me quite emotional, really, because I've come to a place where I don't expect anything. I have lots of hope, but my feet are firmly in Mormonism, in the church, and definitely the gospel. So I find my spirituality elsewhere, in my personal prayer, obviously, and in my reading from outside, Mormonism. But that, it's sad. I always think this is not for me, but I'm hoping it's for someone. You know, when I was listening to the Apostles last week, I was thinking, this is not for me. It's not touching me in any way. It's not. I've come for nourishment. I've come away feeling unfed, but maybe somebody's getting something for this. But I've kind of come to a place where the church can't be everything for everybody, and it's not fulfilling a lot of my spiritual needs at the moment. So I get that in my personal, but I just feel sad that I have to do that. And I feel sad that Alana is not getting anything.
Yeah. And I think, you know, part of why we do what we do as an active sister, as two active sisters, two people who've stepped away, that we can come together in this space and talk about what we enjoyed, what worked, what could be improved, or what the hope or prayer of our heart is. And there is such a great opportunity for our leaders, for our church congregations, to take that on board. We are, you know, my hope is that Alana, who's having a really crappy time right now, will be able to be spiritually nourished by something that, you know, has been part of her life since she's been young. That hasn't come, and that makes me really sad. And I think it's important that we talk about that, so that they can, you know, you can hear what's not working. If people are traveling all over the world and they're getting feedback that this was so wonderful and we were so uplifted by the, you know, handful of people in the room who loved it, that's fantastic. But when the, you know, other 75+% of the membership of the church aren't there, aren't interested, aren't engaging, and it's not meeting their needs, isn't it important that we're having those conversations? And Debbie, I think what we'd love to do is to you know, be talking later on about how you specifically are addressing some of those needs in a really powerful way and what is working, because this whole Brit Vengers journey was, you know, you were part of sort of that original group who was doing really exciting things that have been making a huge difference in the UK. And I'm really excited for people to hear more about that and have that type of experience. You know, we want to show people what's possible.
Can I,
Jane?
Yeah, please.
Can I just say, I think that's where you see the power of the sisterhood in the church, is by the things that Debbie was doing in lockdown, when with the firesides that she was doing. And I commented to Peter, the content that was coming out was from the sisters. Look at what the sisters are doing. The brethren not doing anything. The sisters get it together, they get it organized, they put it on, they give you the show, you know, for active members. That was where the content was coming from. That's where I felt the power of the sisters. And that's where, like, I mean, you were saying about you feel the power when you're maybe in a room with them, but I think the power really needs to be on display, and it's quite often not.
Yeah. So you didn't feel that?
Well, actually, it's never.
Yeah. Alana, were you going to comment?
Okay, it wasn't even anything. I was just thinking back to you saying, about, not get that I'm not getting what I need to, and it's sad and things like that. But I guess the Mormon critical person that maybe I can be sometimes kind of jumps to the fact that, but that would be my fault. Because I'm not good, and it is that's the reality of it. It's it's your attitude going into it, and all the typical things that they say in regards to, because I'm not praying, I'm not reading my scripture, so I'm not spiritually prepared to get what I need from that, and that's what I kind of go back to, because that's the thing that we've been kind of taught, and that's sad as well, because I didn't go into this, like I said, with the general authorities one, it's not my thing. I don't even watch General Conference, but I was wanting to watch it because we were going to talk about it, and I just think I wasn't going into it all negative Annie, so to speak. I was saying, right, okay, let's see what this is about. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, and I did start to question myself. I'm thinking, am I so far gone that I can't feel anything anymore? But I know that's not true, because I felt similar feelings. Obviously now I'm thinking, right, I've not been feeling the spirit, because I can feel those same feelings sitting watching a nice show, so yeah, it's funny how it spirals, because you then start to question yourself. You start to put it on you. You start to think, is it me? But really, it's not. It's there. And I don't like to say these things like to sound like I'm slating people or anything. I'm not. But I just think you, as the leaders, are not giving the members, not even just the sisters, what they need right now. It's, for me, they're pussyfooting round about everything. It's about trying to keep people in the church. It's more about protecting the church. It's not really looking to each individual member or each individual area and seeing what they need from that right now. And I think that's the whole thing that they're missing. They're not really, in my opinion, they're not interested. It's more about protecting them and the church. It's not about the people. And that's just how I feel.
Not feeding the sheep.
Yeah.
Or some of the sheep are not getting fed. They're getting slim pickings, and I think that's we're so used to having crumbs sometimes, like Debbie was saying about her spiritual cup not being filled. Sometimes we just make do with the crumbs that we can get. We really should demand and expect more. And I can relate to what Alana's saying, being a single sister in the church for so long, for 18 plus years.
Nemo, do you have any thoughts on the first speaker?
Yeah, just a couple of things that came out. But first, I just really want to say something about what Debbie said. I find it really sad that we ever get into a position where we kind of just stop really expecting something from the church. Such a vibrant organization at its beginning, such an active and moving organization, has become so dull that we just stop expecting anything. And some people feel guilty about that, and they feel bad that they've ended up in that position, and my heart goes out to those people in particular. As for that first speaker, she quoted from the family proclamation, which is a very exclusionary document towards women in general, and idealizes a very traditional view of the family that a lot of these women may not be able to uphold. And often, if they're single sisters outside of YSA, there's probably a reason that they aren't in a traditional Mormon position, whatever that reason is. That there will be a reason, and so to not address those reasons, to just quote from a document that says, well, that's how your life should be. And that was echoed when she described single sisters as sisters. She said she was speaking to a group of sisters who are not currently married. Now that sounds like a bit of an innocuous phrase, but actually when you look at it, that phrase is just an assumption that you should and will one day be married, because you're not currently, but you will be. And it's like, well, that's not everyone's position, and that's not the right position for everyone. So why again is this cookie cutter idea that everyone's going to have to fit into these neat little boxes, and it just doesn't work. So those were my kind of thoughts on that first talk.
The single sister who I was chatting with in my messages last night had talked about how he expected there was going to be this huge focus on I should be married, and if not, I should be looking for a husband. I should keep that as my goal. I don't want that to be my goal, and that means I'm going against church leaders. This is literally verbatim what she was saying. So the guilt was already there. And I really did think maybe this will be about more. This will have more substance. This was the talk in the conference that, I kind of had to switch off a little bit because it was a hugely marriage focused. But, as you say, it started off with the expectation that marriage is going to, is expected, is what you would want. The thing is, I don't know if it needs to be made clear, just in case we have people in our audience who don't necessarily know, that there are a whole host of complicated ways that women feel about the doctrine of marriage. And, you guys are welcome to comment on it. But for me, as someone who is married, so keep in mind, this wasn't even aimed at me. But being married is, while it's wonderful, it's not all my life is, and children aren't all my life is. And when I hear talks that are, really focusing on the doctrine that is taught about how I will be married for eternity and that I will continue to have children throughout the eternities, I find it very distressing. I find it very upsetting. And I feel like we've never really been able to explore in the church. We explore it a lot out with the church in feminist spaces, but within the church, we've never been able to really sort of explore what does that mean for sisters who find it restrictive, or who don't want that, who are, perhaps even asexual or transgender, who I really look forward to just being Jane in the afterlife, who will eternally worship God. And that's it. I don't really want to think anymore about what's expected of me, these roles that I have to fit into.
Lynn, yeah.
There was
Yes, sorry.
Lynn, you jump in.
I know I started with just the one positive thing that I could think of in that talk, but I did write notes about some of the other things that I found quite triggering, and it's along the same lines as what you were saying, Jane. I think she started off, or at the beginning of the talk, she spoke about the goal is to return home, and my question was, what home? Where is that home, and what does it look like? Particularly when your audience is a single sister, what does that look like? Well, what kingdom am I going to be in? If I'm a single sister, if I go to the celestial kingdom, how can I get to the highest degree in the celestial kingdom as a single sister? And there's so much that we don't know about the eternities. So, and she also spoke about preparing. A lot of her talk was about preparing.
Yep.
Preparing for eternal life, or preparing to be a wife, mother, husband, or a mother, or whatever. And there's just so much that we don't know, that really, if you're a single sister in the church, can you imagine spending your whole church life preparing for an eternal marriage? And when I was in that situation, I had an experience where I was praying, and I just had I just kind of had a paradigm shift, because all the time I was praying for a husband. I was praying that I get a husband. I'm praying for this. Everything I did was focused on getting this eternal marriage, because that was my goal, and that was my everything. I banked my whole life on it. All the choices that I made, she spoke about choices. All of my choices were choices to that end, really, to get that eternal marriage. And this experience that I had, where I had this paradigm shift, and I just thought, well, why am I doing that? Waiting for an eternal marriage, or waiting for a marriage here, that might not ever come. Well, I might be. There's some teachings about sisters getting an eternal marriage, kind of like in the eternities. You kind of wait until eternities, but don't worry that you're single for this life, because in the eternities you're going to have a husband. So my paradigm shift was, well, why am I hankering for that now when I can have a celestial marriage? It doesn't matter. But it did matter. It did matter. And that paradigm shift only comforted me for a little while. It didn't comfort me for long. It didn't really give me much hope. So there's so much that we don't know about the eternities and how that looks. So to say prepare for what's coming in the eternities is a bit unknown. We know it's unknown because Bonnie Cordon was hoping that she's going to get fed in the next life.
Yeah. But then that pressure is very true, Lynn, that idea that you need to find a husband. And no wonder. I've just looked up the Erastus Snow quote. I don't know if you know about this. He was asked about can you get to the celestial kingdom without a husband? And he said, no woman will get into the celestial kingdom except her husband receives her, if she is worthy to have a husband. And if not, somebody will receive her as a servant.
I'm a servant then, for sure, based on that.
So it all comes back to that fundamental doctrine of the woman's salvation is reliant on the man bringing her through the veil. It is reliant on the man bringing her to the celestial kingdom. It underpins everything. So
yeah. So if you haven't got a man, you're not going to make it to the highest degree in the celestial kingdom. And me, I always want to shoot for the stars. I'm like, if there's the top notch, premier.
And so you should, Lynn.
That's what I want.
Yeah, too right. And rather than think to change the system, we just sisters are expected to accept that.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know the stats, Nemo, but there are stats, and I don't know if they're even recent, but about the singletons in the church, how many singletons there are actually in the church.
For the first time, more than 50% of the adult members of the church are single, I believe. Something crazy.
Yeah. So there's a real need. And I know when I was single, some well-meaning people would give me try and give me talks and things like that, but there was so little information. I think there was probably a handful of talks that I could find that were speaking to me in my status as a single person. There wasn't much material. So there was a real gaping hole for me. Yeah.
And
sorry.
Yeah, I think.
Did you want to comment on
that? I don't know. I think that the exploring the doctrine of not wanting to be married or it brings up problems of polygamy. If we start exploring, saying we don't know, yeah, you're right. There's a lot we don't know, but there's also a lot that we do know that makes us uncomfortable, so we avoid. And
I got offered to be a polygamous wife. You can be my second wife. Stuff like that. It's like,
wow.
Well, that's not comforting, is it?
It's horrific.
In fact, I've ended up being a polygamous wife, haven't I? Because Peter's marriage to his first wife is not. We couldn't get a cancellation, so Peter is polygamist.
When there's no need,
And then what does that do for men in the celestial kingdom? Because loads of women have been taken through polygamy, so there's just going to be abundance of men that haven't had a chance to be sealed to anyone, which means that gay sealings are the only way that all men are going to be able to get to the top level of the celestial kingdom. Boom! Deal with that, Russell Nelson.
And the other sides of it that it's something that I feel really strongly about is mentioned in the chat tonight too. There's some great discussion going on in the chat if you want to check that out. But right now is part of eternity, and we are hearing this stuff from even before we get into Young Women's. We're hearing about, you know, how we need to be preparing, we're planning for having children. All roads point to being married from preteen age. And I remember being in Young Women's with a girl who was so obsessed with the subject that, you know, I remember we were on a train and we were going in to have a day out, and this girl is reading the Celestial Marriage Manual as she's on the train. And I remember being struck by the fact that, you know, you're not even getting to enjoy right now looking out the window of the train because you're so busy planning for eternity. You know, she never would marry, you know, she remained single. And how sad is that you can enjoy living and breathing right now? Can you enjoy being single? Is that possible?
Well, that was one of the questions I would ask myself often was, what if it never happens, Lynn? What if you never get what you're, you know, you think you should have, you know, never get an eternal marriage? What if that happens, you know? So that would be a reminder to me to live now and, you know, not keep hankering for what could be.
Well, I think for some women, I think, you know, I mean, I'm not saying I know loads of them, but I know like there's someone in my family who just has never been married, has had relationships and things, but they said they're happy with things the way they are. So I think for some people, they maybe just don't have that dream of being a wife and a mother, you know. And so, yeah, I guess I would say there are some people who can be happy being single. I mean, I would say I'm happy now being single because I've had my fair share of, sorry, Nemo, idiot men who just don't get me. But not to say, I mean, a while ago I was like, that's it, I'm done, no more, I'm not being in a relationship, I'll just be miserable the rest of my life. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what am I saying? I'll just be miserable the rest of my life, so I need a man to be happy? No, screw that, you know. I had to talk myself out of all these thoughts I was having. But I've came to the fact that, you know, if I don't ever meet the right person, if there is a one right person out there, then I just have come to, you know, I've got my daughter, I've got my family, you know. Yeah, everyone wants to be loved, right? Well, not everyone, but most folk want to be loved and have that companionship. But it sometimes just isn't there for everyone. I mean, if you go back to my patriarchal blessing, it tells me that, you know, I will be married, I'll be sealed in the temple, and that many choice spirit children will come to me. And I've had one child and I've never been married. So, boom. But maybe it's the next life it's talking about.
Well, that was always the one that I got as well. Told in the next life. Yeah. Because I was a mother as well.
Is the focus on, you know, well, at least there'll be the next life. You know, there's not an option that if you're going to be in the celestial kingdom, that is what's going to happen. And, you know, I am very aware that I'm speaking in a space that is aimed at single sisters. I hate even the phrase single sisters. I'm so sorry. You know, Alana's an independent parent. I'm so aware that I feel like I'm being offensive here. But when I think about the next life and what that will look like in terms of relationships, I'm so looking forward to being me. I'm so looking forward to being me as, you know, the daughter of heavenly parents. I'm looking forward to those relationships. Thinking about how I am in terms of I'm looking forward to being married to me. Yeah. Because that sounds so arrogant, doesn't it? That sounds really narcissistic.
I think someone said that in the comments actually a little while back, that they're just trying to focus on marrying themselves.
Yeah.
Well, that is something that I noted down was for all of the talks was, and I said to Peter, when are we going to hear about self-care? When are we going to hear about taking care of you instead of taking care of everyone else, serving everyone else? Because that's not everyone's problem. You know, not everyone is sitting there wondering, who can I serve? In fact, it's the opposite. I always found for me was I never had enough time to do all the charitable things that I could think of. You know, that quote of never suppress a generous thought. I had so many generous thoughts that I would be forever just doing everything for everyone else. And I just got so worn out.
Yep.
So I just want to hear some self-care. What about loving you, serving you, taking care of you, marrying you even? And what about that? So that then you're in a better place to be able to serve more without feeling kind of resentful, really.
Absolutely.
And you
So
mentioned Heavenly Parents, Jane.
Yes. Yes.
Where was Heavenly Mother tonight?
Yeah, that was something I thought.
Tonight. We do have a change in pace when Sister Bonnie H. Cordon starts to speak.
Yeah, she's very energetic, isn't
My
she?
hopes were there. I thought, yeah, this because the Young Women's Programme is now talking about how we're beloved daughters of Heavenly Parents. Yeah, Heavenly Mother. Do we have any thoughts on?
I just feel with the whole Heavenly Mother thing, obviously we've spoken about it before, where, you know, well, I grew up, I don't know, Debbie, I think you said, what was it, 16 you joined the church, you know, Lynn, I don't know, like, I was just always taught that she was too sacred to talk about, that Heavenly Father, you know, the way people talk about him and Jesus and things, they don't want that for Heavenly Mother. And so I just accepted that growing up. And it's probably only in the last few years that I've realised, no, that's not the case. You know, for me, certainly, you know, men in my life haven't always treated me properly. And so a men authority sometimes is too much for me. And Jane actually said to me once, you know, have you ever just tried praying and addressing Heavenly Mother? And I hadn't, because prayer's something that I'd always struggled with. And I sometimes wondered if that was part of the reason, you know, the male figure. I didn't have a lot of trust with male figures. And, you know, I don't pray I always say the whole on your knees, you know, but I did. I just spoke to my Heavenly Mother once, and it was the most wonderful experience, prayer that I've ever experienced in my life. And so I think, why would you not want sisters to have that experience? The church is so male focused, male everything. It's males who drive the church. Why can't we as sisters have that one thing that we need in our lives? Why can't we? And I would love that to be answered. Why can't we have that one thing? I know I'm not ever going to get it answered, because it's all the beat around the bush stuff they tell you. But I just think if that's what gives someone peace, if that's what gives someone hope to hold on to, let us have it. The men have got everything else, you know, and I don't mean that in a bad way, you know, at all. I just mean, you know, you get the priesthood, you know, you get the decision making, you know, you get to be bishops, you get to do all these things. Not that I'm saying I would want to be a bishop. But, you know, why can't our sisters who are so just willing that we can have our Heavenly Mother more talked about and have her around us, you know, it's that we have to do it ourselves, you know, we have to just take it on ourselves in our homes without being able to just openly in church. And I know obviously in our ward, certainly Jane, that one of the last few times I've been there, she was mentioned once or twice. But when you compare that to my whole life in the church, from growing up in the church, I think those were the first few times I've ever heard Heavenly Mother mentioned, ever.
Yeah. Instead of talking about her, we just get, you know, I have to send this as a message in the chat. Let's just focus on the salvific acts of male deity instead. Let's just focus on how great the male gods are. Cool. That's helpful to the sisters.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's what I'm saying. You know, it's all like the men, you know. Obviously, I know we'll get to the end. I'm so desperate for us to get to this last talk because I'm ready. Yeah. I'm ready. But, you know, it's like, yay, sisters. We're there to be mothers. We're there to be wives. We're there to be in the house, chained to the kitchen sink. I don't know if that's a thing that you guys say down in England, but we quite often talk about women being chained to the kitchen sink because that's their role, you know, the housekeeper, the childbearer. And I think a lot of women, that's all they feel within the church, that is their role. I still don't know really what the need for women in the church are. For all we're told, we need you here. I genuinely, deep within myself, can't figure out what is my purpose as a woman in the church, other than, because you're taught it from your youth. Get married, have a husband, that is the same thing, have kids, you know. I mean, women have to put their lives on hold to be mothers. I've listened to so many podcasts and things lately where women are broken because they put their lives on hold, they put their careers on hold. They aspire to be so much more. And then going back to what we were just told, you know, don't put, who was it that said it about don't, it was when he was speaking to the young adults, right? And he said that, you know, don't put off having children, even for money reasons. And in the past, I've been told, you know, don't put it off for education, etc. And that is wrong. Let people have their education and then have children, because then they're in a better position to support their children because they're financially able to. Don't be like me, who's sitting now. I don't work for health reasons, who's sitting at the moment struggling, who's sitting, you know, living pay to pay, who's doing everything she can to keep on top of having her child fed. And I'm not saying that to you know, put out poor Alana, you know, but it's just to let you see that that is some people's circumstances. So why would you encourage that within the church? Why wouldn't you say, go get your education, still get married, but wait till you're secure in your financial status and then have children?
Because secure people that are secure financially have the opportunity to question the situation they find themselves in. They have control over it. Whereas if you are paycheck to paycheck, poor, screaming child, you're going to cling to the sense of community the church gives you. That's where you'll stay.
Yeah. But what has the church given me, though? You know, like, I've been struggling before and I've never asked for help, probably due to my own, Jane will tell you what I'm like. But for me, it's not enough for me to just cling on for those reasons.
They didn't account for you being such a strong, independent woman, Alana, that's all.
Yeah. And, you know, I always push back as well, you know, whenever we sort of start talking about when the best time is for people to have children and whether they should delay or not delay. And I always get really, really frustrated because I think it's part of our church conditioning, and also Western culture conditioning, that as soon as people are of age to have children, we start commenting on whether they should be married, what point in their lives they should have children, whether they have enough money in the bank to have the children. You know, I think this is a good space to talk about it, you know, in a female space, that we do this to ourselves and to other women all the time, that we comment on people's fertility, that it's such a deeply personal decision. And somehow we're now equating your righteousness with when we decide to have them, or whether we're delaying or whether we're not. Now, whenever people get married, or not within the church, what we don't teach safe sex, we teach abstinence. So when people are either becoming sexually active or are married at what tends to be a young age as a member of the church, children will inevitably follow because we just haven't, we don't really do it. We don't explore either a woman's ability or a man's ability to say, no, I don't want to have sex. We don't talk about the expectations within marriage. It's all very, very hush hush, but we can comment on it all we like. So yeah, I'm all for have children when you want to have children. It's entirely your choice. Okay, any thoughts on Sister Cordon's talk?
Nemo, I feel like you've got something you want to say. By that head shake and laugh there.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Jaredite barges sound horrific. Yeah. Right, the way she described them, she's like, oh yeah, they've got a bit of a bung at the top. These things were turning upside down. They had animals in. Poo was going everywhere, I'm sure. So there's all that. But the thing that gets me about Sister Cordon, and it's not her fault, and I want to be really careful how I say this, because I mentioned it in the chat, and I think I phrased it well there. But I want to get this right. She represents a double standard within Mormonism that I think is unfair to women, because we are constantly told that our bodies are a temple and we have to treat them a certain way. That we can't have tattoos, we can't have extra piercings. But then you realise that Utah has got more plastic surgeons per head than a lot of other states in America. She has some fairly obvious kind of plastic surgery and sort of cosmetic surgery that's been done. So she kind of shows that example that so long as you're beautifying yourself in a way that men appreciate, and you're making yourself traditionally beautiful for men, then you can alter your body however you like. However, because conservative men in Utah don't like tattoos on women, because they don't like multiple piercings, therefore those things aren't allowed. And I think that's pretty horrific. That's how I see it. It's because those forms of plastic surgery and those forms of body alteration, like breast enhancement and things like that, those are appealing to traditional beauty standards of men. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But and unfortunately she embodies that, and I when that comes to my attention, I really feel the need to kind of call that out because it's not okay.
Thank you for that, Nemo. But also, can I just, because we've got a question in the comments that was very sweetly put, thank you so much. But we've invited Nemo here tonight as an ally because his analysis is so banging good. And he's been a great ally. So thank you for it.
I love that comment. I don't know if you've seen me laughing there. That's what I was laughing at. The 10 cow wives don't make themselves, Nemo.
Oh, that was, yeah.
You can only get to 8 without enhancements.
Do we remember that video?
I'm a 9 cow wife. Peter gave my my dad 9 cows on our wedding day.
Gives me nosebleeds.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, actually jumping on from what we were just talking about, fertility. Okay, so Sister Cordon starts off talking about, and I know we're joking about it, but praying for girls. We're about how it's all boys in her household. Maybe it's just because I'm super sensitive about this subject, but when we start talking about pregnancies, how wonderful things are. We're praying for girls, not boys. We're praying for boys, not girls. It's very exclusive. This is the age group of women who are, well, first of all, they're single, right? So the assumption is that you probably don't have children. So yeah, we don't want you praying to have babies, right? But I found that a bit kind of funny. It's like, be celibate, but yeah, when you do, what I dislike is that we've got so many fertility issues with people who just would be happy to have a baby. Issues with people who have had to make the painful choice to terminate pregnancies, people who electively choose not to become parents, all of those really, really valid things. And I just think it's such a sensitive subject that we are not very good at talking about with nuance. But if you're in a women's space, I would expect that you should. If we're in a sort of broad conference talk, I get it. But whenever you're just speaking to women, I mean, come on, we should be able to talk with a bit more nuance and sensitivity than that. The amount of women who will experience pregnancy loss is huge. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. So yeah, I would like sensitivity. Other thoughts? What else have you guys got from Sister Cordon?
I actually agreed with you. I agree with you when she was talking about that. I thought, where does this actually fit in with the audience? I wasn't entirely sure what point she was making there with talking
it was
about.
like one of these stories, but with no actual point to it, no kind of.
Part of me is wondering if she's trying to sort of be down with the singles kind of thing. I don't know. She was sort of bouncing about a bit, wasn't she? And she was, maybe she felt she was being a bit vulnerable, and it probably didn't come off very well. But some people do use personal stories like that, don't they, to kind of connect with other people. But you're right, Jane, it just didn't come over very well, I don't think.
So the format was kind of different with Sister Cordon. She shook things up a little bit. I don't think I've ever seen that before on a broadcast this size. Okay, there weren't a lot of people in the room, but it was a big broadcast for the whole of Europe. She did some different stuff. Anyone want to comment on that?
I
She was
felt
up
it was probably more appropriate for a classroom, to be quite honest. I felt if you were coming to be spiritually fed, you didn't want to be treated like you were in a Relief Society lesson. That's how I felt anyway. And I think, at the beginning, she was just trying to ease herself into it and make a connection with the audience, but it was so mismatched.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Debbie, did you have something to say?
No, yeah, I think you're right actually there, Lynn. It was probably more like suited more to a Relief Society lesson or a lesson rather than a conference. But I have to give her credit for trying to connect.
Do we like that format of? So for those who haven't heard this yet, do we like the format of turn to your sister behind you, in front of you, at the side of you, and have a chat about whatever it's going to be? What were some of the things?
I thought it was good.
Yeah. Okay.
But so I thought, okay, this is great. If people are watching this all together in a chapel, they can do the same thing, right? Brilliant. Everyone can play along at home. The people they're talking to, if they really are talking to single sisters, are often people that are quite isolated from the community. So those are the people that aren't going to have anyone to turn around and talk to, right? We make this assumption.
I would have had to have
everyone's
spoken to my
someone,
dog if I turned around to speak to someone,
right?
or my
So
8-year-old daughter.
if you're at home and single, who are you turning around and talking to? That's all I've got. Sorry.
No, but I like that point. So for me, I get this what do you call it? This kind of tension between being, inhibited and, being completely, out there. So I love the idea of turn to your partner and have a chat, and I have had great experiences when that's been done. But for the most part, I kind of tend to think, oh no, now I have to talk to someone.
See, had I been there, I would have been totally panicking inside.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I've got to try and say something, like what to say, because you know me, I play myself down. I've not really got much to say. I've not got normally good ideas or things. I'm not good at thinking on the spot, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I would have been panic stricken in that moment. I mean, Nemo did it a bit different at Sunstone. He had us in a group setting, multiple people. So if you had something to say, you could say it. But we weren't kind of put in that spot where you had to turn to the person next to you. And I think I kind of missed this part because remember I was like, hey, where did she go? Because Daisy was talking to me at the time. And I think, Nemo, you said she'd gone to sit with someone who didn't have someone next to her, which I thought was really nice. But yeah, it was a bit strange. It was a bit strange because there was another point as well when I don't know if you've seen, the camera went round everyone, and remember I said spot the sister who isn't speaking, and I felt so bad for her because I'm like, everyone else is talking, she's just on the end of her own, no one there to speak to, and she's just sat there like this, and I just felt so bad. But I was also thinking maybe she just chose not to participate, or maybe she doesn't speak English, all this was going through my head. But yeah, I would have hated that.
Who would have been the sister who just wouldn't have, and she would have thoroughly enjoyed it, watched everything, but just would have chosen not to participate, and that's fine because she was smiling, she looked quite happy.
Yeah,
she was having a great experience, and there wasn't pressure on her
to
have to talk. So that was quite good.
Yeah. I had wrote down, and I just wrote them down. It was a couple of questions that she asked. And I guess it was just, it kind of resonated with me a little bit, just because at the moment, we're a church. I can't speak tonight. What is wrong with me? Jane knows how much this tickles me. Like, it takes me all the time not to break down in hilarity, because I love when people mince their words. Like, is that a Scottish thing I just said there? Like, mince their words. I find it hysterical. I don't know why. And I guess it's just because I don't really know where I really stand at the moment with the whole relationship to God, relationship to Jesus. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle where I'm still trying to figure out, do I believe in the Jesus that the Mormons teach about? I believe there's something. I believe there's got to be something. but I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. And so 2 questions that I wrote down, because I thought I really want to really delve into this and I really want to have a think about this just on my journey. She had asked, so the first question was okay, it was the second one that I kind of thought, oh, I really need to think about that. So she said, who is Jesus Christ to you today? And the next question she asked then was, I'm getting emotional here, who do you need him to be? And I like that, because I thought, who do I need him to be? Because the one that I've been taught all my life, I just don't see him anymore within the walls of the church. I don't see that Jesus that I need him to be. And so I kind of wrote them down because it's questions that I really, really want to really delve into. And so, Jane, you know that I'll probably be on the phone to you. Let's talk about this. But it really kind of that did hit me a little bit, because I thought, who do I need him to be? Do I need him to be in my life? Do I want him to be in my life? So yeah, I kind of like that. I think as well, just after that, she kind of talked a bit. See, my notes are so sketchy. I write things down and I forget what the whole point. So maybe someone else can. She was talking about. She'd said something like, sometimes we see and sometimes we look, and then she went on to say something about, but we need to be the ones who have compassion or something. And again, that's something that really resonates with me, because it's something that I think we need to see more of. Is just having compassion for people, that bit of understanding without the judgment, because I just see that so much, and not even just in the church, I just mean in the world. So I like that a little bit, when she was talking about compassion. And of course we had to go to the Good Samaritan video, right? Had to be the one.
Is it a church talk if we don't reference Good Samaritan? Yeah.
Yes, that's the part I enjoyed the most. I think because I feel so starved that I'm a sucker for any mention of Jesus. As soon as I hear Jesus mentioned, it's like, right, come on, give me something now. So, I was really sort of sucked in when she was saying, who's Jesus to you now? Is he the comforter? Is he your chastiser at the moment? I really liked the thoughts and the reflection that brought to me as well, Alana, about, what kind of Jesus do I need at this moment? So I particularly liked that bit. That was good.
And I think it is good to ask you, what do you need of Jesus now? And having the freedom to do that. And I feel more free to do that now than I did when I was at church, because I was conditioned to see Jesus in a particular way, or Jesus gives you this in a particular way, or answers your prayers in this way or that way. Because if you're not, I think it might have going back to the other sister Porter, she talked about being bitter, and like that's obviously the wrong way to be. Like, but obviously if you've been single for a long time, you're going to feel bitter at some point, or you might feel bitter at some point. I know I did. But then you're guilted for feeling that way. That's the wrong feeling to have. Or that's, and it's the same with Jesus. That's the wrong way to accept Jesus in your life. You have to accept Jesus in your life in this way, the way that we prescribe. So I feel more free to ask that question, what do I need Jesus to be in my life? And have that freedom to say, I can have him be what I need today. And that might be different from tomorrow.
Yeah, I think coming to a realization for me that the church as an organization cannot fulfill everything for everybody and cannot fulfill everything in me, and that I've had to acknowledge on my journey that I have to find certain things elsewhere, then I've been able to let go of the church's hold on me, because they can't fulfill everything in me. They can't expect me not to find it elsewhere. That's just not fair, is it? And they might think they can dictate where I find my fulfillment, or how I feel about Jesus, or God, or Heavenly Mother. That hasn't got that hold on me now, because I don't expect too much of them now, and so I can't stay where I am, spiritually, just because they can't fulfill it. So yeah, like you, Lynn, I have, I've developed my own way of looking at deity, really.
Yeah, as have I. And I think
Thank you.
what I thought was what I really liked about this especially was how it maybe is a bit of a cliche, but when you hand over so much to the class to discuss, and then you can come up to the mic and ask questions or comment on what it is that you're discussing, you're trusting the class, and in that context, being brave enough to say it's over to you is taking a risk. Now, I have to be honest, I do think it was a very safe risk. I think predominantly the people in the audience there were serving missionaries, or, people who were very, very clearly used to being in church.
I wondered if they had actually given them written, and like you have those lessons where they write out the quotes and hand them out at the beginning of the lesson, and you read this. I wondered if they'd given them a little script to read, because it just sounded like the answers you'd expect.
You're right, it did. I just would love if those questions, so, who is the Saviour to you today? How would you introduce him? How would he introduce you? What if those questions were about Heavenly Mother? Who is Heavenly Mother to you? Wouldn't that have been exciting and vibrant and vulnerable? And I don't know. I think I see possibilities when we let people honestly ask questions and share the thoughts and concerns in their hearts. Like we've been mentioning this, all through the Brit Avengers series of episodes that we're having, but we have hopes and concerns and things that are worrying us, things that we would like to bring to the attention of church leaders, things we would like to see them comment on, all sorts of things. The fact that, no one is here, no one's listening. Why is this happening? What do you have to share with us in that context? And we're not getting that back. I would love for them to create the space for us to ask those questions freely and not be afraid of what we're going to ask. Any other thoughts before we...
I don't know if we want to address this or not. Our lovely Mormon Civil War posted a question there to the panel, and I've been sitting here racking my brains thinking, right, what would I have wanted them to say? It says, knowing what you do about the experience of single women in the church in Europe, what would have been the 5 most important things you would want to hear from these leaders?
That's a great question.
It's a great question, but I don't know that I could give 5 answers just like that.
Well, while we're thinking about that, maybe I could just address another question in the comments where someone's asking, is this a place for you to make your points? Absolutely. We have a whole spectrum of opinions and points of view here. So please do feel free to share. Shirley.
Yeah, I think Shirley had asked, I don't know if you've seen it, like, what is the goal of this review? That was the question she'd asked further back.
Okay, so yeah, what would we have liked to have heard? Will we
Choice.
Will we come back to that at the end? Would that maybe be easier?
Yeah, I just thought I would put it out there before it disappeared up the
comments.
Up the comments.
Yeah, so do we have anything we want to be finishing up about Sister Cordon, or shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Oh,
Let's move on.
Okay.
Gritty teeth.
Who was giving the final closing comments?
Elder, that was the funniest part. I don't really know how to say his name when she stood up and she couldn't actually pronounce his name.
Is it
Aliaud or something like that?
Yeah, Aliaud.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Would have been, him. We'll say him.
Yeah, we should have got that right.
I have wrote it down, but that's how I pronounce it. Aliaud. That's how I would pronounce it, but I don't know if that's correct.
Okay. Well, I to give some context then, and I'm thinking about, sort of Shirley's question here, and I think maybe this might help give a bit of perspective to why we're here. So we have a mix here of active members of the church and people who've taken a step back. And I had real hopes for tonight. I want for people who are struggling to make it work. I'm just tired of seeing all my friends and loved ones leave. I'm tired of people coming to church and finding pain rather than be able to come in and find comfort in Jesus Christ. The reason why we're there, often we don't get to do that. And so we have all of these different perspectives here, and we push back and we disagree with each other, and it's brilliant. So the 21st Century Saints podcast, with me being the active one and Alana having taken a step back, it really lives in that tension. So we're trying to sort of look and say, is this working? The point of this meeting for the whole of Europe, for single sisters in the whole of Europe, what do we think? Is it doing what it sets out to do? We're just sort of analysing that. This last speaker was, I'll be honest, I was kind of devastated by it. I was really, really heartbroken. Is there any sort of good thing anybody wants to say about it before we come to the mic drop moment? Did anybody?
Well, only no, I haven't really got anything good to say about it, except I think he was well intentioned. And I also, people talk about cognitive dissonance. Like with me, I feel that I want to give him grace and support his right to say what he feels. But on the other hand, if we don't address this, these words are going to filter through into our elders' quorum spaces, and they're going to be repeated. I actually think this elder really thinks that all women want to hear what he said. I don't think there was anything malicious or unkind intended. But my purpose on coming here in the first place is because I sort of texted you, Jane, saying, I'm so angry about this, and I don't know, and my feelings about how to deal with them are mixed, because I want to give him grace, but I'm fuming.
Yeah, I think, Debbie, as well, that I totally respect everything you're saying, about you want to give him grace and all these things. For me, like you, it makes me so angry, because I think I don't, like you, I don't think he went out his way to hurt people. I wouldn't like to think he was that type of person. But again, for me, it goes back to this spouting out your mouth before you think. I know, Jane, you love when I do things like that, right? But it's just spouting out your mouth without stopping to think of the impact that it'll have. But they get away with it because they're either general authorities or they're somewhere up there. I don't even know what his position is, because I suck at remembering.
He's on the area presidency.
But they get away with saying these things without realising the impact. Now, I don't know what those sisters who were sitting in the room were thinking. I don't know how anyone else was thinking, what anyone else was thinking who heard that. But for me, I think I commented in our group, no words.
I cut you off.
What did he say?
Would it be okay?
Well, we're going to show the.
Well, we've seen what it is. I think we built this up so much that
I know everybody's like, what is it? What is it?
Is that all he said? Just nothing. I've heard words.
He didn't say he killed the man, it's nothing like that. But yeah,
to roll it.
So Nemo, would you be able to share that little clip with us, please?
I can, yeah. Ready?
We'll just
go.
Wait one moment. I just need to bring that up on the screen. Right, okay, there we go.
Okay. Right.
Oh, wait, sorry, it's bumped off again. Right, okay, sorry, this really is a build-up, guys. I do apologize.
It worked earlier. Come on.
It is. It's because I'm struggling.
Hey.
You good?
We're ready for you.
Right.
Sisters, we need you. We need your beauty. We need your smiles. We need your service. We need your creativity. We need you. And we are so grateful for the contributions you are making to the kingdom.
Ah!
Nemo,
Yeah.
I know this. Can you press play again?
Yeah,
Oh,
please
yeah.
rehear that again.
Because you know what, it's so quick and so simple, and you may all still be in shock. Let's hear it one more time. Let's try and hear it one more time, Jane. I'm coming. Okay.
Let's see what we got.
And thus, we can one day, sisters, we need you. We need your beauty. We need your smiles. We need your service. We need your creativity. We need you.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing is, that
What was
wasn't
the
just
end
a
part?
part of his talk. His talk was, what, a minute long?
Yeah,
minute and a
very
half?
long.
So that was the thrust of his talk, you know. That was his message.
He came out of the gates within the first 30 seconds of his talk saying, this church is led by apostolic authority. So he went straight in with the patriarchy line. There was no like, isn't it wonderful to be with these sisters who lead in our church? Aren't they a great example? No. This church is led by men who have apostolic authority. And then he said a kind of nice thing about the sisters. He was kind of like, oh, but the measure of the church's power is the measure of its strongest women, or it was a quote, something like that. And then he delivered this beauty, that what they need from the sisters is beauty, smiles, service, and creativity.
You know, it goes a lot back to what Alana was talking about, Heavenly Mother, about us not talking about Heavenly Mother because, you know, we were taught as children that she was too precious and we needed to protect her. They do the same thing about women in the church. They feed us what they think that we want and need. They put Heavenly Mother on a pedestal and protect her. They put us on a pedestal because they think we need to be there and that's a good place to be. But the thing about putting women on pedestals is that we can be knocked off. So when we don't do or perform or whatever as we should, bang, you're down, you know. And I was really upset by his comments, really.
What I'd like you to address in the panel, if it's okay, I genuinely think, like you say, he wasn't intending to hurt or cause offence. I think he genuinely thought that's a lovely thing to say. But more than that, I think lots and lots of men, not just in the church, lots of men think that that's exactly what women want to hear. And I know it's going to be shocking that in this day and age that we have to explain this. Could we just explain this?
Well, I don't need it. I don't need to be told as a 60-year-old woman. And I'm sure a lot of, if it was addressed at single women, they don't want to hear that what they're needed for is their beauty and their smile and their service. You know, we want to be known for our contribution, for our intelligence, for our wit, for our, you know, so much more that we have to offer. And it's the same old thing. It's not giving women a choice. As a youngster, I wasn't given a choice about whether obviously I had a choice. I wasn't sort of a child bride or anything, but I was conditioned that I had to marry young. I had to have children young. I didn't really realise I had a choice. It worked out well for me, but I didn't really realise I had a choice. And this is not, we're still not given choices now. It's all about how we look, you know, how we are perceived, not about our power and the contribution that we make. That doesn't seem to be important. That's not even a choice that we're given to be.
empowering contribution. Absolutely. Well, to even in a church setting, to even have to care about beauty, appearance, how I dress, how someone feels about. I mean, the women I'm sure in this group have all experienced being asked to smile at church. I'm sure you have, right? Or in other settings. I mean, I'm making it specific to church here because we're hearing it in a church talk. But it's awful. It's really awful. What about the idea of service? Was it, wasn't that sweet? Wasn't that something that we should be thankful for?
I want to say something, but I'm a bit reticent to. Just kind of as the man in the group, I can't really speak to the experience of a single woman, but I would imagine, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine that the sisters in that room, if they are single sisters, they will have spent a lot of time worrying about whether they're beautiful or not, whether they smile enough. They don't need to be told to do that. They've been concerned about that for a long time because some of them at some point will have felt unwanted for that reason. Service, these women have probably given everything to the church, and they probably feel entirely let down that the church hasn't given them what was promised in terms of what they were told they need, a marriage, children, etc. Right? They haven't received their end of the bargain. So, and creativity, I don't know how to address that, but certainly those first three, I think it's just wildly insensitive to address those things with women who will have such painful memories attached to them, I would think.
Alana, service.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about that. I mean, when you look at it from the perspective of women, we talk in Relief Society about, charity never faileth. That's what our motto is, but it's like Debbie said, we are more than that. We're people. Hearing that tonight, it kind of just made me feel, again, going back to how I felt, like that's what we're good for in the church, we need your beauty. And like Nemo was saying, I think I didn't grow up feeling beautiful. I questioned a lot, is there something wrong with me? Because I didn't fit, what was it someone said, I didn't fit the
cookie cutter.
The normal, typical, the person that someone would look at and think, wow, she's stunning, or, and I got to a point where I started questioning me and thinking, is something wrong with me? Why does no one want me? And so when you hear things like this, we need your beauty. Well, not everyone feels beautiful in themselves. Not everybody can smile, because they've been through so much pain in their life. They've been through, I don't know, I always struggle. Like in my head, I can feel like what I'm trying to say, but I can't always put it into words. But it's like, service is my thing. I serve without thinking. And again, I don't say that to blow my own trumpet or anything, but it is really my thing. And I spoke to Jane about that. That was something for me that was really missing from our ward. For a long time, was the lack of service. Like nothing was happening. So I've had to go out and do it on my own, find ways to serve and I got to the point where I realised as well with service that, we give it all to the church, and I think it shouldn't start there. It should start with our own families. I was given so much time to the church, to people in the church, that I realised I'm not being there to serve my family, who should be the first, in my opinion, that I should be helping. And by service, I don't mean going and doing their shopping or something, just even being there for them in their time of need. That's serving. That's. But I just, it's hard for me to put into words why I hated what he said. I don't know that I've quite processed it fully yet. I just remember going,
yeah.
Seriously? And as I say, I think in the group chat I said no words, because I just thought, here we go again. One of those things they say and don't think of the impact. And then again, I'm thinking, so if I just took this the wrong way, but then I seen everyone else raging, and I was like, oh, thank goodness it's not me.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, because service is your thing, Alana, somehow, while praising women for serving, they still managed to make you feel guilty about it.
Sorry, Alana, he didn't praise us for it. What he said is we need it.
Yeah, we need it. Yeah.
No, and so it's, first of all, it's assuming that that's all we've got.
That pressure on again. Yeah.
And yeah.
And when what you're saying there about service within the family, I mean, I do think we do talk about that a lot in church too. How family service is obviously really important, and especially for women, they never quite give us the tools to tell us how to prioritize, only that we should, and somehow magically everything gets done. But I know that I don't have to explain too much when I say this, but having a son who is special needs, who requires a lot, literally it feels like I have no life. I'm not able to leave the house for weeks at a time. And I love everything about what that service looks like. But also, because I'm human, I also really resent it too. I would love to just be me and not have to have a symbiotic relationship with another creature who's so solely dependent on me, and likely always will. I love the things that I've been taught. It's spending time with him is the gift of my life, but it's also messy and complicated, and I need self-care to be taught. I need for church to stop putting service on a pedestal, because it becomes something that I am sacrificing me to do. It's a very, very painful subject for me, and so you need it, do you? Well, yeah, everyone needs service from me. That's something that I would hear when things got too much. Jane, we really need you and we really love you, right? Well, yeah, that's the problem, is everybody needs us and everybody loves us. Go find someone else to do this job, because I'm tired and I'm not Superwoman. And human beings need to work together in communities to care for our vulnerable, to care for our elderly. That's what we sign up to do. And to expect one demographic to be taking care of that, it hurts a lot. Yeah, sorry. Anyone else?
I just think sometimes statements are thrown out without any nuance, without any deep thinking. If you've got just 2 minutes in a talk, just tell the sisters that they are needed and appreciated if they have to do that, but to just tie it down into those simple adjectives that we really don't really want to hear. It will trigger a lot of sisters, because I said before that a lot of sisters, they don't just sacrifice, they self-sacrifice. Well, they sacrifice their whole being, and it is hard for some sisters to not say enough. I've got to step away from this, and that kind of talk and doesn't give sisters the room to stop and think, well, what do I need?
Yeah. And what are sisters needed for in our church? If we were to really genuinely answer that question, why are we needed?
Well, you can run a ward without sisters, really.
Exactly.
You don't really need a sister to have a functioning ward. I mean, it wouldn't be
who's going to do primary, Debs?
No, I mean, on paper, a lot of stuff would not get done.
And there'd be no children without sisters, so there'd be no primary.
That's
true.
If not one woman turned up to church this Sunday,
it would run.
It would continue.
Yeah.
If no men turned up, then we would have to go home. We would not be able to come to Christ that day. We would not be able to renew our covenants. We would not be able to do anything.
Which makes 12-year-old boys more important than fully grown women.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we needed for? And I would love those types of questions to have been answered. I would have loved for tonight to have made single women in the church feel valued and feel like there was a plan for them that didn't involve waiting on a man appearing in their life. Could I maybe ask, somehow, Deborah, you, is it a lockdown thing? Maybe you seem to have been addressing these types of questions for quite a while now in the UK, and somehow you're getting it right, really, really right. Would you talk to us a little bit about the firesides that you've been holding and what sort of content that
I think maybe the problem with me, or maybe it's I don't actually always expect answers. So, but I love the searching and the questioning. And so the firesides have been my way of questioning and searching for answers. But if we don't have any answers at the end, that's okay, because it's the start of the discussion. And that's why I started the devotionals, relating to things that we don't usually talk about in church, you know, about being in a mixed faith relationship, or suffering from depression or anxiety, the things that we don't have time in Sunday school settings to really dig deeply into and speak about and be a bit vulnerable. Just creating safe spaces for sisters to say, do you know what, my life is really crap at the moment, and I feel safe saying it. That's why I started it. And it didn't suit all sisters. Some sisters want to, stick to what we've always had, but some sisters were appreciative of the shift.
So what were some of the topics that you covered?
So unfortunately, being a beginner, I did it on Zoom, and I didn't know you had to save it. So they're all lost now, which is really sad, because a lot of people really put a lot of effort into. So we had one about the Saviour and our relationship to the Saviour. We had one about mental health, anxiety, depression. We had one, as I said, about being in a mixed faith relationship. That could be having a child who's left the church, or a parent who's left the church, or being married to a never Mormon. We had quite a few. I'm trying to think of the others. It seems so long ago, but quite a few. Yeah, we had about 6 or 7 of them. And then we had one that was supposed to be tonight, which was about Emma. So we had a sister who was a member, who was a descendant of Joseph, and also was a member of the Joseph and Emma Smith History Society. And so we were going to get, hopefully, into the real, as far as we know, the nitty-gritty of their relationship, not the stuff that we get fed in Sunday school. So I was looking, but we had to cancel it. But yeah, that's coming in January. So.
Now, what was really interesting for me was comparing tonight is designed for women, a specific demographic of women, and then there were comparing it to the firesides that you've had as part of your State Relief Society. They were impactful, relevant, exciting. So the one that I'm thinking about is the one about mixed faith relationships. And being in a mixed faith marriage, I had, we tend to kind of focus when it's mixed faith relationships on mixed faith marriages. And like you say, you had mother whose children had left the church, but you also had the child who had left the church. And it was amazing. It was so refreshing and respectful and vibrant, vulnerable, honest. It was wonderful. And what I'm trying to, I suppose, understand is we've got people who have been called and who've come a long, long way to do tonight. How is it, why was it so different? Why does one soar? Why is one impacting the lives of so many people and the other is just, if anything, causing more pain? Do you have any thoughts?
I don't know. I think, as I said, is because sometimes it's not having the answers that I'm interested in. It's us finding our own answers, taking away the information and the places we can get help. And knowing that we haven't all got it together. None of us have got it together. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe because of their positions, they don't feel the freedom to just let it just fall where it falls, just throw the pieces up in the air sometimes and let them fall where they do. And, as a community, we'll put them together again and we'll support each other. And if anything is said that's not quite, kosher, but it's about not being afraid, is it? It's about knowing that we're all in this together, trying to find our way as just humans, trying to support each other and find each other along the way. So I don't absolutely know why they can't be like that. Maybe the forums are too big. I don't know, but we did have quite a big audience.
Well, we're going to come back to Peter's question in a second about, what would we have liked to have heard? What would we hoping for? What would have been better? But I'm going to ask, I don't know, Nemo, I'm putting you on the spot to fact check something here.
Okay,
There's
ready?
something that I note that I've just remembered. I was so embarrassed when he said this, and I want to just kind of apologise to the world. But that final speaker had said that we are the only church in the world that really believe that we are children of God.
Yeah, I didn't know how he could make that statement.
Because then he said that's the reason that other churches say that we're not Christians, because we believe it.
Yeah, would you like to call? Are we the only church in the world that believe we're really?
We're most certainly not. Absolutely not. I think we're one of the few churches that teaches sort of deification in the way that we do, that we'll become God and that we're kind of a species that is God. And so that is our kind of like next evolutionary step or whatever. But it says it in the New Testament that we are his children. I think it's in one of John's epistles, said, inasmuch as you are his children, or you are the offspring of God, I think is one of the phrases that's actually used. So anyone that reads the New Testament, any Christian from Catholic to Protestant to wherever, it's there. We believe we're children of God. I'm a child of God is not a uniquely LDS concept.
Yeah, I think the point he was making is we believe we're his literal spirit children, don't we? And that, but I think the point is that we don't have to keep referring ourselves to other churches. Our doctrine, some of our doctrine is so amazing, it stands on its own, and we can just preach it. We don't have to say, well, but they don't. That's not the point. The point is that we do just focus maybe on what we believe that is, what the one.
Sorry. No, carry on.
Yeah,
I was just saying that's something I really struggle with, is them constantly referring. And again, growing up, I didn't think anything of it because I was a child. But as I've got older, I hate that we constantly talk about other churches and how we're the only ones because we have the true doctrine. People in other religions believe that what they have is the true religion, so who are we to say otherwise? I don't think it's a good selling point, so to speak, is to bring other churches that they haven't got it all, they haven't got the truth,
It was a to bring it up, I think.
Yeah.
Unnecessary in that, well, whether it's true or not that we are the only church that believes in us being literal spirit children of Heavenly Father, it's kind of less relevant than the fact that it was brought up at all, because I think for so many of us, for so many women, we are finding a spiritual home alongside our Latter-day Saint faith in other places too. So whether that's Community of Christ or secular Buddhism or, wherever it might be, that so many great things are happening in this country with interfaith worship, and as we come up to Remembrance Day services, we're seeing lots of that. It's just to go back sort of what feels like 20 years to we're back to having that sort of competition again.
We're back to McConkie calling them the great, calling the Catholic Church the great and abominable church, as mentioned in Nephi. I think what's really interesting about this being addressed to single sisters is that some of these sisters want, like, I'm not going to address the sisters that don't want to be married, because that's their choice, but the sisters that do but haven't found someone that they want to be married to, we have to remember they're working with a very limited pool, because we encourage marriage within the church, right? Then when you look at world population, you realize that Mormons make up less than 1% of the world population. We are tiny. One, that hurts men and women who want to try and find a spouse but can't because they're working within a limited pool. And two, we can't afford to alienate ourselves from the 99.9% of people out in the world that aren't Mormon. Why are we alienating ourselves from those? Why are we insulting them by saying, well, we're the only ones that have got it right? Why do that? Because it just hurts the members. It isolates us, and we're not big enough. We're not like Islam, where there's 1 billion of them, right? There's 1 billion Muslims. So if they wanted, they could all just close the walls, gather in one place, and they'd be fine. We can't afford to do that. No man is an island. We can't be an island, or woman. Sorry, but
John Dunn there.
Yeah.
Okay, so Lynn, what things would you have liked to have been talked about tonight?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. Just probably more about Christ and the relationship with Christ. There was a little bit of that, but a little bit more, because we did get 3 quotes from President Nelson, from Bonnie Cordon. All of her quotes were from the prophet. So come back to me. I need to give it a little bit more thought.
Sure. Nemo, what would you have liked to have come up tonight?
Okay, I'm gonna effectively give my mum my answer, because I know what she would have probably liked to have heard, and she'll probably be watching this. For the divorced women who have children, whose husband has remarried and whatnot, but obviously they have no right to a temple divorce unless they find another man, obviously. So I would love to hear one day addressed what happens when they want to spend eternity with their children, but their husbands with someone else, because the sealing comes through the priesthood authority. So what happens? Someone answer that. That's what I would have wanted to hear, like a pertinent question that single divorced women with children want an answer to, because she can't be the only woman who's ever worried, how am I going to spend eternity with my children?
You've brought a memory back, actually, when I was young married, and my dad was a sealer in the temple. And I mean, we've been married 40 odd years now, Kevin and I, but we've had our moments, and sometimes as a young man you think, Mum, you can't turn around and think, what the heck, how did I get here? And I remember talking to my dad and saying, if anything happened between Kevin and I, what would happen to the children? And he just was so blasé, and he just said, oh, well, they'd be with Kevin. And it crushed me, absolutely crushed me. Really painful that women have to even think those things,
So what would you like to have heard tonight, Debbie?
I would have liked to have heard more nuance, more talk about the choices that our young people have these days, and how that can be accommodated within the gospel. We are losing so many of our young, and that is really painful. I mean, I'm in a beautiful ward, but we're in all the leadership positions are in like 60s. I think the youngest is 60, going up to 80, and we're just tired of changing chairs it's like musical chairs in High Council, We're losing too many youngsters, and I think we need to encourage and show the youngsters that there are choices for them, within the gospel plan. And also, I think going back to what you were saying, what could be done differently, is that they could maybe have faced the difficulties more and be more honest about maybe the difficulties that might occur if you're single, or the difficulties that the church make when you're single. I think that would have helped sisters a lot to know that it's okay to be unhappy single or happy single, and the church will support you in that place, whatever. Yeah, I would have liked that.
Alana, what would you like to hear?
Oh, I think they've covered it all. I don't know, like, I know obviously we spoke earlier about the whole the way she did things, having people speak to one another, but part of me kind of feels like maybe ask the singles what it is they want to hear. Like, let them ask the questions and have them answered, you know, because I know at some point every sister has to be single at some point, you know, before they get married and things. But if you've been married young in the church, you don't fully get to, you know, the point of understanding where I'm 40 and still single, you know, well, having just come out of a relationship a while ago. So yeah, I think for me, just to actually see what it is we need. Again, I just think there's a total lack lately of actually seeing what people need and the questions they have. But I think personally, sometimes they're afraid of that. I think they're afraid of the real questions and what if something comes up that they can't answer, you know. So yeah, just more of the real stuff. You know, for me, a big thing, like Debbie, you were saying, you know, with your firesides and things, and that's what I need from church. I need the real stuff. I'm fed up hearing the same stuff, the same answers. We need to start talking about real issues, real things that affect people on a day-to-day basis. I'm not saying completely change it, you know, and stop teaching the doctrines of the church, or, you know, the basic stuff, but it's like we've all heard it now. It's like it's time to move on now. It's time to really, like we keep saying it, if they don't change it soon, they're not going to have a church, are they? Because people are just, more and more people are leaving. So,
Lynn, did you come up with anything else yet?
Yeah. So just pondering while I was listening to the others there. So I just, a couple of thoughts. Why was it just single sisters?
yep, that was my question, Lynn.
Why single sisters? And if it was just single sisters, then was there something specific that you wanted them to get from this? And what was that? Because there was no clear, obvious message other than, you know, like what the other panelists have said. You know, it could have been delivered to any female audience. I kind of then started thinking about if I was still a single sister in the church, I would want to know that there was a place for me. I would want to hear that and what that looked like, because we hear so much about what it looks like to be a Molly Mormon, so to speak. You know, we hear that. And the other thought that I had was about, I always craved to hear more self-care. So if they were thinking of talking to the single sisters and the single sisters only, maybe that could have been a message, is how do you care for yourself, instead of giving them the message, the constant message about serve, like that's all that you can do because you're a single sister in the church. Then you know, that could have been a message to what does self-care look like in a church where we're asked to give so much. And just one last thing, the other thing that I always was craving from my meetings at church was people being vulnerable, just seeing that vulnerability, just so then you can make that real human connection. These people do get me. They're understanding me. They're feeling me, and they understand my pain, and they want to help me with that pain.
I love that, Lynn.
Sorry, Jane, can I just say, because a friend has just messaged up there, she felt that she's a black single sister, and she says she felt really underrepresented.
Yeah, let's. I'd really like to amplify your voice. Actually, could you read that for us? Because my eyesight sucks, Debbie. Would you?
It's gone. It's not there now.
I can get it back up if you need.
Have you got it, Alana?
Yep. Is that? Oh, wait,
sometimes now. Yeah.
Sometimes, as a now single black sister in the church, would also like to see more representation of us, as generally, or white bros and sisters take it for granted.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. Absolutely. And I think for me, what I would like to see is, you know, what is more? I was hoping that the Europe area committee would be doing some things that would be speaking to the needs and experience of women in Europe. Please keep doing more. This maybe hasn't ticked all the boxes, but you know, there were a good few that it ticked, and the fact that it was happening at all, I think, was really, really big. I was delighted to see single sisters being their needs and experiences. You know, the fact that this was being held at all, I know that lots of single sisters were incredibly excited about it. So yeah, please keep trying. Please keep coming out with that kind of content, because it's important. But probably what I would do is maybe look a bit more to the kinds of content that Debbie's been, you know, working on and putting out with your stake, because that stuff is the stuff that is working, and it is like a balm for the heart. It's wonderful. Okay, I'm going to go around and get everyone who would like to maybe share a closing comment. But before I do that, I'm going to just let our audience know that our next episode is this Wednesday, and we're going to have the wonderful Dr. Sheldon Greaves come and speak to us again on the theme of origin stories. So while it's so easy for us to look at scripture and sort of think, you know, the Bible, this is just a bunch of fairy tales we should just toss out. What is the value in keeping our origin stories, and what sort of origin stories do we have that we want to keep from different cultures? You know, we certainly have some from Scottish culture and Celtic culture here. So we're going to look at worldwide origin stories and take a look at the Hebrew Bible and see, you know what, this guy is amazing. I really recommend you guys might want to tune in on Wednesday night and let us know what you think. Dr. Greaves is awesome. You're right, Doug Vincent. Okay, we're going to go round and we will not give boys the last word in this podcast. So we'll start with you, Nemo, and we'll just go round and finish with Alana. Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share with us tonight, Nemo? Oh, are you on mute?
We can't hear you.
I do that to myself sometimes. I just want to say that this is the most empowering meeting for sisters that's happened this evening. And I'm glad I got to be the token male to be part of it and to see what was going on. And it was just really pleasant to, you know, share this space with all of you and hear what you all have to say. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming, Nemo. Debbie, would you like to share some closing thoughts? And you're also on mute.
Well, we all just do it tonight now. Just everyone go on mute.
I've got have you ever done that color-coded thing? I've got a bit of blue in me and a bit of kind of little tiny bit of red. So sometimes I say things and then I'm a bit, ooh, I wish I hadn't have said that. Because like you, Jane, I really, really do. I do feel and think what I've said. You know, I'm not going to say I don't think those things, but I really am appreciative that they at least came over and tried. So yeah, I've just got to give them that, because I know, you know, I've got lessons and stuff to do myself, and it's really hard to get things right, but they don't ask us what we feel, do they? So the only way we can say is, can you just, this is what we need. So that's all I have to say, really.
Absolutely. Lynn, would you like to share some closing thoughts?
I guess just probably the last thought that I'd have would be that single people spend a lot of time on their own. Sometimes, they're not necessarily living on their own, even though they're single, but a lot of them are. So if you're going to take them out for an evening, make it fun. Give them some fun, spend some of your millions of dollars on getting them together so that they can have some fun. A weekend, the Europe area, a nice, weekend for them where they don't have to pay to go. and make it, they can have a fireside on the Sunday, but have a lot of fun in between, so they get to spend some time with people in the same circumstances as them, and then they can make bonds and friendships that will be a balm to them and a comfort to them, but mostly that they can have fun, because I'm all about the fun.
Absolutely. Thanks so much to our guest who came on with 30 minutes notice. Was it even that? I just really appreciate you guys for doing it. Things got very rushed. This Brit Avengers land is crazy right now. So much is happening. So do stay tuned to these spaces, and we'll keep you posted with what's happening. There is so much more still to come. Alana, do you want to close us out then with some final thoughts?
Sure. I was looking at some of the comments, and I was just thinking about how, I felt throughout my life, of those feelings of not feeling enough. And I just want to say to anyone who doesn't feel enough that you are enough. It's something that's took me a long time to get to realise that I am enough as I am, with all my flaws. I have anger. I get angry at my child, and Jane will tell you I beat myself up for it. But do you know what? Who doesn't get angry? Who doesn't make mistakes? Who doesn't kick themselves the next day and think, oh, I shouldn't have done that? So just know that you are loved and that you are enough. And just always, always remember that you are enough. And the God I believe in, you're enough just as you are. And that's basically, I want to just leave it in that, because I don't think I could do it justice any other way. And just thank you so much to all our listeners and all our people who have commented. We couldn't do this podcast without you all. And again, thank you. I reiterate Jane's thanks to Lynn and Debbie. And well, I thank you, Nemo, but I mean more to the ladies who last minute came on. But I was thinking that poor Nemo came on a panel full of women, and he's handled it so well. So no, thank you so, so much. We really appreciate all the support and all the love that you guys give to us all.
And with that, we will see you all right here on Wednesday night and the following weekend for some more on the British Rescue. You'll be safe and make good choices. Good night, all.
Good night.